Okay, The Mandalorian Chapter 10 or Episode 2 after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and I want to tell you that this episode of The Mandalorian was virtually nothing taken on its own. Now, what it is basically is Mando has been hired to take Frog Lady, that's all I call her, and her eggs to another sector where her husband lives so they can be fertilized, and they can't go light speed because it would damage the eggs. And all during the time, the child is breaking into the little container and eating the eggs. And for some reason, during this entire episode, doesn't get any trouble for it. Apparently, the mother, who is so careful about these eggs, doesn't seem to know how many of them there are. And so they are, as they're flying along, accosted by a pair of X-Wing fighters from the New Republic, which starts to pursue them because, of course, the Mando has a criminal record, and they go down to this ice planet in which they crash the ship and then encounter a bunch of big spiders. That's it. Eventually they get the ship fixed and they go back, but apparently the eggs never get fertilized, and whatever the significance of the rest of it was, it doesn't matter because at least they're all alive. And in the very end scene, he eats another egg. Haha. Now, the reason it took me so long to get this out is because there's nothing to this show. There's nothing there. And it goes to my whole problem with Star Wars, generally speaking. You can't just watch the picture. From the very first time that I saw Star Wars, A New Hope now called, I found it to be a most entertaining movie that I had seen up to that time. It was wonderful. It was something that I was telling everybody about. They've invented a whole universe, a whole group of people, a whole story, a whole fairy tale, if you will. And George Lucas did a great job of that, basically taking the idea of Flash Gordon, complete with the evil emperor, and then you add some knights in shining armor. You then add in pirates, and then you merchandise it all. And you can write a pretty good story around it, and he did. The problem is that after the first picture, everything became this, okay, you have to read the comic book and a graphic novel and be on all of the bulletin boards on the internet in order to figure out just who is who and what is what and who anybody's name was. One of the things that bothered me in Star Wars, I never heard Han Solo's name mentioned. It was always muttered. And part of the reason there was that you have two of the main stars in this who were teenagers at the time, and then you have a great actor who plays Obi-Wan Kenobi, who would have been known for his Oscar-winning performance of Bridge Over the River Kwai, if not for Star Wars, didn't even want to be on the film. It was a paycheck movie to him, and he just mumbled through much of his lines. And so what we have here is a show that you can only understand if you go to school for it. It's too much trouble. So I looked it up, and the early scene where they're supposedly hijacked by a Jawa, it isn't a Jawa, it's actually Scrap Jaw Motito, who was something in about the 12th movie film that they did, and I doubt that they identified him even there. It's my problem with Star Wars. It's a much more entertaining film if you didn't have to understand everything. And I think that's the problem. They threw a bunch of Easter eggs in here, all kinds of individuals and creatures and things that if you haven't studied carefully for it, you're not going to know that that wasn't a Jawa, even if you knew what a Jawa was. That's not this because it's that. That happened in the Search for Skywalker and became canon. Give me a break. I know it's the same with Star Trek, that you have to kind of know who some of the aliens are, and you have to know who some of the characters are. But one of the things that I found very refreshing about The Mandalorian was that it was a fairly simple way of working. They explain to you what a Mandalorian is and what his ideals are at the very beginning. He goes out on adventures trying to save this baby of Yoda's species in order to get him back to his owner. And the rest of it is spaghetti western done as a space opera. It works pretty well. This episode, I was not impressed with. I'd like to know what you think about it. Please make a comment and subscribe if you like it. Until then, don't go far.